Yes, so thank you. So I'm Aimee Mears and I'm from the Sports Technology Institute at Loughborough University, so I'm a senior lecturer there. My background is predominantly in sports biomechanics, so understanding how people move and the forces they produce, and then trying to understand a bit more about the human-equipment interaction, so using that biomechanics data to feed into the design and engineering of sports products. And I've worked with a number of brands on different projects, from sports bra design through to ice hockey skates and golf club design. But today I'm going to be focusing on some kind of the current research that I'm doing alongside doctoral research student Rachel Batter, who's sat there as well. And the research we've been doing is around informing the design of sports and exercise products for exercising women during pregnancy and postpartum. So during pregnancy, women undergo significant anatomical, physiological and biomechanical changes. And this is largely due to the growth of the fetus and the development of the fetus during this time. And some of these changes, although maybe short-term, can actually become long-term changes and carry on into the postpartum period, so the period of time following birth. And with these changes, this sometimes then leads to challenges for women with regards to pain and discomfort that they might feel. So when they want to kind of be physically active, then it may hinder their ability to carry on exercising during pregnancy and in the postpartum period. But we know there's multiple benefits of physical activity, both for the mother and the baby during pregnancy, and then also in the postpartum period as well. So we really need to support women to be able to be physically active during really critical periods of time. And although the guidance with regards to what physical activity women should be doing is limited, because we don't necessarily have the research in this area, I certainly see there's opportunity for sports products to support women to be physically active, again, during pregnancy and postpartum, because we've seen benefits, for example, with sports bra design, and again, allowing women to be physically active in other aspects of life. So just to touch on what some of these anatomical and physiological changes are, so we could class them as both potentially short-term and long-term changes. And just to kind of highlight a few, so a lot of the short-term changes that we see during pregnancy predominantly are around due to the fact of the huge fluctuations in hormones that take place during pregnancy. And this can then impact on things such as joint laxity, so you tend to see an increase in joint laxity throughout the body during pregnancy. And with then, say, changes in joint laxity, we may start to see long-term changes to the human body with regards, for example, to the foot structure. So you might see a flattening of the arch of the foot due to that increase in joint laxity, which might never return to pre-pregnant states. Similarly, changes within a woman's posture. So again, given the change that they go through during pregnancy and that increase in the anterior load, what that does to the tilt of your pelvis and how that changes your spine and your posture. Again, potentially then placing different loads on the body. And aspects such as your muscle strength. Again, it's certainly challenged throughout pregnancy because of this additional load that you're carrying, but how that then could continue into the postpartum period. So it's understanding again, how could potential sports products help to support some of these changes that take place. And with those anatomical and physiological changes, it then means that you potentially are moving slightly differently. So again, thinking of the different physical activity that the women might be doing, whether it's running or cycling, you might actually change the way that you move following pregnancy in the postpartum period. So again, here are just some proposed biomechanical changes. So as I kind of highlighted, with regard to, say, a reduction in your foot arch height, that could then modify your foot shape, meaning that potentially the footwear, the trainers that you're using would need to be modified. But could also then reduce your shock absorption capabilities and alter your ankle kinematics. And with a modified posture, it modifies your center of mass position, and again could influence your balance, which may have implications again for a number of different sporting movements and potentially the risk of falls. And there are products that have been brought to market to target these specific populations. So here I'm just going to focus on and just brought up some examples of some postpartum products, as that's kind of the direction where Rachel's PhD is going. But products such as, insoles to support the foot arch, so knowing that, quite often women would have that reduction in foot arch. There's been research done in that area, through to a number of different products around trying to support the pelvis. So again, it's an area that women tend to suffer pain and discomfort kind of during pregnancy and postpartum. Through to, nursing specific sports bras, so thinking more towards perhaps the postpartum period. If a woman's breastfeeding, again, how can they get kind of easy access to do that? But with all of these products, again, there's very limited research to support their effectiveness for this population. And quite often, the products have been designed for day-to-day general use, rather than thinking about how could this be used within physical activity or exercise that women might be doing. So there's certainly room to do some research here. So that kind of led to one of the initial studies I did, which was just qualitative interviews with 10 women who were physically active throughout their pregnancy and the postpartum period. So the average age of 35, and all had vaginal deliveries. And the key areas that I was interested in trying to understand were their physical activity habits, so pre-pregnancy, during pregnancy, and then post-pregnancy. What were some of the problems and challenges that they face, either continuing to exercise or returning to physical activity, and then finally their perception or what products they were using, again, throughout these different stages. So this is just some of the key themes. So in terms of the activities that women were doing, it was kind of running, swimming, cycling, Pilates, yoga, and in terms of then the intensity and the frequency, it's kind of no surprise that the intensity and frequency decreased during pregnancy and postpartum compared to what they were doing pre-pregnancy. The majority of the women were exercising up until 36 weeks of their pregnancy, and then returning to exercise or physical activity approximately 6 to 8 weeks postpartum. So this was in keeping with some of the literature that's out there, which looks into kind of when and how long women are able to exercise during, again, pregnancy and postpartum. Then regard with some of the key themes that emerged, so in terms of some of the challenges that women faced, both trying to be physically active and then their sportswear choices, there were kind of three main categories that kind of fell out of the research. So the first was regard to physical aspects. So a lot of women did comment that they suffered with pain or discomfort when trying to be physically active, and quite often this was related to their pelvis or their back. The body shape changes that their body went through during this time certainly dictated what they were able to wear. But there was always this essence that women were listening to their bodies as to how much physical activity they did and the intensity of that activity. Moving then to the practical aspect, so a lot of women simply just sized up, so they were still using products that they used pre-pregnancy, but just buying a bigger size, because essentially that's what they felt most comfortable to wear. But there was also this essence of they were making do, so perhaps there wasn't necessarily the availability, or they didn't know about the availability, so they simply that was their solution, was to size up. So there's definitely a sense of perhaps there wasn't the knowledge of what products are out there and where they would go to even find that out. But it was very important for the women as well that whatever they were wearing, again, they wanted to be seen as being kind of physically active and wearing something that they would have worn pre-pregnancy. So not necessarily, kind of a maternity type or style clothing. And then the final category was with regard to economics, and that was very important as well for women, where they wanted to have a product that had that longevity. They didn't just want to wear it for a certain period of time. They wanted to make sure that they could potentially wear it postpartum and further on and longer. And then obviously, cost was also a big factor for their purchasing habits. So this then was followed on by a questionnaire study that Rachel designed and distributed. And again, we wanted to investigate some of the factors that were associated with postpartum women's physical activity habits, as well as then what active wear they were choosing to buy, and whether they use any specific aids during this period of time as well. So 108 women, postpartum women, responded to the questionnaire, and we were targeting an active postpartum population. So yeah, no surprise that 90% of them were active prior to pregnancy and carried on being active throughout pregnancy and postpartum. 67% of those continued physical activity even past that 36 weeks of gestation, and 64% returned then physical activity by 8 weeks postpartum. So again, it was in keeping with kind of what we'd seen in the literature. For these women, pelvic pain was one of the most common causes for ceasing physical activity. And when questioned about whether they purchased any specific garments to help alleviate that pain, only 15% of them were using any type of aid. And in this specific case was a compression belt or compression aid. So very few had chosen to purchase anything specifically for a postpartum population. But this idea of the pelvic pain kind of being a barrier to physical activity for women does potentially then lead to challenges with regard to mobility and stability difficulties. So again, if we think in pregnancy that women have this increased ligament laxity, they've got this increased anterior load, so it's kind of shifted their center of gravity position. It's altered the muscle kind of imbalances and the load on the joints, potentially then contributing to this pelvic discomfort and pelvic pain. And pelvic pain in the research has largely been attributed to instability of the sacroiliac joint, so the joint between your spine and your pelvis. So there's the kind of theory or idea that if you can improve the stability in that region, you could potentially reduce the feelings of pain and discomfort. So that's the idea with regard to pelvic belts, is that they could improve the stability around the pelvic region. And whilst there has been some research that's looked at that concept of trying to quantify the stability of the pelvis, it's not necessarily then been specifically for a postpartum population, and how does that then influence overall stability? So an overall, how do they improve their balance, for example. So this is an area of work that, again, we're kind of in the early stages of. So yeah, Rachel's currently recruiting participants. So we're looking to recruit postpartum women who've had kind of any mode of delivery. And we'll be assessing their balance in 3 different positions. So in their bilateral stance, tandem stance, and unilateral stance. And this will be tested with and without the use of a compression belt. They'll do the balance trials with 2 different eyes closed and eyes open, and we'll measure the pressure underneath the compression belt using a kick your hind pressure sensor. So what we're interested in measuring is their balance and some of the parameters that are critical to balance. So for that, we're really trying to quantify the movement of the center of gravity. So we've got an accelerometer that will be placed approximately where the center of gravity would be on a person, so on their lower back, and we'll be using triaxial accelerometers then to monitor their center of gravity motion. We're also interested in capturing the perception data, so again, how do women feel when they're using that compression belt, and do they perceive an improvement in their balance when using the belt. And this is just some preliminary balance data that's been performed on a postpartum woman. So in the top line, we've got the traces for each of the balance conditions for no compression, and in the bottom, the balance traces with compression. So if you essentially think this is a bird's eye view, so you're looking at your center of gravity motion in both the anterior posterior direction and the medial lateral direction. And just qualitatively, as we can see with the no compression condition, we see this kind of greater spread in the center of gravity trace. And really what we'd like to see is a kind of a tighter cluster of those traces, suggesting then that a woman's balance has been improved with these conditions. So as I said, it's very early stages, so we are currently trying to recruit, but I think, just trying to collect data from this population is challenging in itself, so we're definitely working through how we can best do that and recruit subjects to capture this type of data. And then some of the future directions, which again is work that Rachel has been working on, is the idea of using material extrusion, additive manufacturing, to create potentially customized and localized changes to garments, and in this case, creating customized compression belts for the postpartum population. So we've currently been exploring using full control G-code to create different patterns, different printing properties that we can then print directly onto the fabric to change the mechanical properties of the fabric. So then using 3D printers to print using TPU directly onto the cotton spandex fabric, and looking at the changes in those patterns and how that then modifies the mechanical properties. So we'll be currently been doing some tensile and strain testing on some of these samples, and then looking how that changes the pressure that those samples exert. But yeah, so that's the area that we're going to be moving into, but as I said, still kind of at the early stages with that. So yeah, just to summarize, I think the significant anatomical, physiological and biomechanical changes that take place during pregnancy and postpartum obviously pose problems for women to continue being physically active. But yeah, there's very little research and guidance out there about what solutions could be, and we think sportswear could provide some of those solutions. So by starting to gather some qualitative insights from women, we are trying to move into those areas that are important and some of the challenges that they face. And yeah, excited about the future and what kind of mean techniques could provide by creating potentially localized compression around the pelvis region and potentially then expanding it to other regions as well. And yeah, I'd just like to say obviously thank you for Rachel for all the hard work as well, and yeah, thank you for listening and inviting me today.
Thanks, Aimee, for a very interesting presentation for everybody. How have you all done with thinking of questions, guys?
Hi, thanks for the presentation. That's really interesting work. Your first group was average age 35. So is there an age impact on these things? Because you can see the tissues changing with age. So would you need to look at different age groups as well?
Yeah, very possibly. I think just the demographic of kind of, it is an aging population kind of getting pregnant now. So, but yeah, certainly it would be a case of, could we segment and expand kind of that type of research, so we could segment by age. And yeah, I don't think we necessarily did it with the questionnaire, but I'm certainly, whether again we could analyse that data as well by age. But yeah, and I suppose the other way as well, like kind of an older pregnant population again, do we see differences in what they require? Yeah, certainly something we could look into.
Okay,
this is a comment really, and an offer of help. So great work. I think it's a fantastic topic to work on. Last weekend was the National Running Show in Birmingham, and I know the guys at Raccoon Media incredibly well, so I could certainly connect you and the team to them. I know they have a database of something like 200,000 runners in the UK. Okay. So if that's helpful.
Yeah, definitely, because I think current kind of methods are approaching the mother and baby groups, and I know kind of reached out to some local groups, but that'll be really useful, please. So yeah, we'll take you up on that offer. Thank you.
Okay. Just a quick question. 3D printing on top of the fabric. I noticed that was essentially like a sine wave, compressed sine wave.
Yes.
Can you just explain why that was used? I've got my own ideas, but
yeah, I think in a way, for simplicity, I think we've just started with a kind of the sine wave. So we have explored kind of the printed parameters as well, kind of the height of the print bed that we're printing, also then the number of sine waves, the frequency of the sine waves. So I think we've just gone with that for simplistic reasons, nothing else, nothing more than that.
It's bound to be payoff when we say simplicity or cost, dare I say, or speed or anything like that as well. Against what might be other geometries that would work well with different axes in the fabric. Because we've not necessarily delved into say like exotic structures or anything like that, but I think it's to be further worked on.
Okay, please.
I just wondered what kind of printer 3D printer was used to print. Was it an FDM?
So yeah, I don't know whether Rachel you could.
It's an
the only one. Yeah. But yeah, and then we did experiment with using different materials as well. So we're using TPU because that seemed to bond much better to the fabric and still allow kind of the stretch that we required as well. So.
Okay, lovely. I think we've still got time for 1 or 2 more questions. Did you have a question, please? Yeah.
I was just thinking about those women and in the first study, I think you showed, and the back pain. And I was wondering if you had taken the type of physical activity into account, and if their back pain was somehow related to the type of physical activity practice.
Yeah, I mean, I've got that data. I haven't necessarily, I suppose, looked at it in that finer detail, but I mean, it was, very clear that kind of the high intensity exercise, so running, that certainly kind of decreased as the pregnancy went on, and then postpartum period, when they returned to exercise, it was, walking to then build up to running. So, but I think it was certainly kind of more the cyclical, high impact activities. That's what the exercise, the physical activity women were doing that potentially then exacerbated the pain that they were experiencing. Yeah.
Okay, I think we've got time for one more question.
I don't really know what the question is, but I was just thinking we've got some really kind of inspiring role models coming through the sport nowadays, and in the sport, like mothers coming back to sport and hearing about Laura Kenny trying to go to the Olympics. It's just ridiculous. But I was just wondering, I guess the more we see mothers coming back to sport is going to make this area so much more kind of rich in its research. Have you seen an impact with these super mums coming back and like going to the Olympics and pushing the boundaries, I suppose, of what was kind of accepted before?
Yeah, no, exactly. Because I think during the Australian Open now, I think there's 8 mothers that are playing kind of on the tour, and some of them only had babies 8 months ago. So it's it's incredible. So I think there's work being done more towards the physical activity, the guidance that women are given to returning to exercise, and again doing that safely, not exacerbating some of the challenges or the changes. From a sportswear point of view, I wouldn't say there's been that much, and I think that it was my personal kind of experiences that really started wanting me to kind of research this area. So I suppose whether brands are doing more personalised stuff for the elite athletes, possibly, but I wouldn't say from a general population there's too much. And I would say from a brand's point of view, it's almost been reactive. They've seen this is a population that we need to be providing a garment for or sportswear for, but is it really what is going to solve or help some of these challenges that they're facing? I don't believe that they have that. So hopefully with these kind of inspirational people, then it will drive change.